Hello everyone, Otter here, and today I am back with another challenge run video. So first, let's very quickly go over the rules for this challenge, because you can't have a challenge without any special rules. So first of all, no soul, not no soul, that would be very hard. No charms. Now there are some exceptions to this rule, but the exceptions are only when necessary. Grimchild is obviously allowed, so I can beat Nightmare King Grim and Troopmaster Grim. But, however, I'm not allowed, for example, to use the Grimchild charm to try and attempt the Radiance, because that would be against the rules. Same is true with the King Soul. I can use the King Soul, but only to turn it into the Void Heart. And since the Void Heart is needed for a lot of the game, obviously I can always use that charm. That's the only real full exception. Alright, so then the next rule is no nail arts. This is just a pretty simple one. No nail arts, but this rule definitely came back to haunt me big time later on. The next rule was no extra mass or soul vessels. So for the full game, we'll be playing with what we started with in terms of mask and soul vessels. 5 mass, so after 5 hits, or in the case of double damage bosses, 3 hits, you're dead. And you have maximum of 3 activations of soul, because you can't use Spell Twister to get up to 4 because you can't use charms. Alright, next up we have only the white spells. Now, while this may sound a little stupid at first glance, this just means you can only use the first level of spells. Like, for example, you can use Desolate Dive, but not Descending Dark, just because the other spells are a little better, and this would just turn into a copy of my other challenge video, which, check that out, shameless plug, where the nail only does 1 damage, so we're just keeping it at those basic level 1 spells. So finishing off, we have no nail upgrades. And so now this is just to maintain the difficulty and to make sure, because if we had only the first level of spells and not the second level, and all nail upgrades, that would just make it so you could use your nail whatever you want, and I wanted a challenge. It's in the name, so making it easy wouldn't really be doing anyone any favors. So, first off, that's the challenge, and now I'll go through my goals. So, what I'm trying to do is to get the true ending, and for those of you who are not familiar with some of the Hollow Knight terminology, what the true ending means is the ending where you kill the Radiance, not the hard Radiance, not the absolute Radiance, but the base Radiance. There's no chance I will ever be able to be good enough at this game to kill the absolute Radiance with these challenge rules. This is just for the base Radiance. So, here's how it went, basically. So first, 3 worlds, or 3 areas, which is starting off Forgotten Crossroads, then Green Path, then Fungal Waste. There's basically no challenge in these, because you basically would normally, like, the challenge rules don't matter for anything, and I've beaten the game, so obviously the tutorial areas are a cakewalk. So, we had a death then in the Soul Sanctum, although that's kind of inevitable because the Soul Sanctum enemies are really annoying, and I'm not patient, so, well, yeah, that's what happens. But from there, we managed to collect abilities. Obviously, we had some of these before going there. We got the Dash ability, Moth and Cloak, the C Dash ability, Crystal Heart, which is Super Dash, and you can go over large areas with it. The Claw, which gives you wall jump, Ishma's Tear, which gives you acid immunity, the Dream Nail, Wings, which gives you the double jump, and all of the level 1 spells, excluding Race, or Abyss Shriek, whatever you want to call it, the one that's the up spell. So then we went to the Watcher Knights, and if I've breezed through this, that's just because I'm not really talking about any of the areas that were easy for me, just because I feel like there's no real point to talk about them, because I just played them the same way I would have normally played them, so there's not really much of a difference and nothing really interesting for me to report on. Alright, so then it was time for the Watcher Knights. And so I had figured the Watcher Knights were going to be a bit of a problem, but not a huge problem. And here was why. I'm pretty sure there's a little more startup lag on the bad version of Descending Dark rather than the good version of Descending Dark. Also, if they do a bounce combo where they both bounce, but there's like a little delay between them, or if one bounce and one rolls, it's pretty hard to beat, or at least for me, because I'm not particularly familiar with the Watcher Knights. And so then, also, they basically took 7 Desolate dives each to kill, which is quite a lot. I mean, obviously, I didn't play them as well as I would like either. The first one, I think I died around 3 times. The first few I think that was excusable though, because I was just getting used to having played the Watcher Knights, where I was only used to really fighting them with Shade Dash. So next up, we got our first Dreamer in Lurien, and we moved on to the Fog Canyon. Now, getting here was actually surprisingly easy, because we did invest in the stags, and so we could pretty easily just stag into Dirtmouth, and then quickly go through Fog Canyon and quickly find Umu. And so, Umu was easier than the Watcher Knights for sure. That's definitely true. I managed to beat it on my very first try, although it was not clean. Not clean in the slightest. I almost died a lot of times. I went to 1 health a lot. Overall, though, it was a pretty fun fight. And then we got our second Dreamer. I forget its name, though, so, yeah, I forget its name. Then I had a plan to easily pick up the final Dreamer. And so normally you have to fight through Beast's Den, but you can actually backdoor in to sneak up on her here if you have the wings. But, however, one thing I did not account for is I planned to go through the Queen's Gardens. Easy peasy. I didn't really even need to fight any of the enemies, except there was one thing in my way. And so one of the little things you have to do throughout the game, and these are trivial most of the time, but it will lock you off in a room. The game will lock you off in a room with some enemies, and you have to kill them all before you can progress. And so most of these are incredibly easy, trivially easy, and even forgettably easy. I forgot that these things existed in the game until this happened. There's one of them where you have to fight one of the mantises that throw the boomerangs, and then 2 of the mantises that throw the boomerangs, and this killed me so much. I feel like I probably could have beat them pretty easily if I just had known exactly where they spawned, the right spot to stand, because then I could just fireball them both. But I tried to, rather than just kind of, not really cheese them, but kind of insta-kill them, I tried to fight them the old-fashioned way with my nail and spells. And overall that was a pretty big mistake, because I think I died 4 times there. So those 2 little bugs were harder than the Watcher Knights. So yeah. And here I just quickly want to say that's probably my biggest problem with this challenge, is difficulty is so out of whack. I don't think the game is designed particularly well to not have the nail upgrades. I think it's different with spells, because you can go through a large amount of the game fairly untouched without using too many spells. But the game is really definitely not designed to have too low of a level of nail. Obviously, if you have good spells, then you can just wreck every boss and everything before it can even have a chance to breathe, so then your nail doesn't matter. But some of the things are just incredibly, insanely difficult without having enough nail upgrades. But anyways, we eventually, finally fought our way through that, and then we did what we said. We backdoored Hera, and then we moved on to the Hall Knight. And I'm going to be honest with you, this is a pretty anticlimactic fight here, because I know that as soon as the Hall Knight gets to low enough health where he starts dying myself, the fight's over. Because I can heal in that time, and I'm never going to take enough damage to die fast enough, basically. But here was the thing. This boss isn't particularly hard that it warrants a lot of deaths, but I'm particularly bad at this game, so I died, I think, 3 times to it, when I should have really died at most once. It was pretty bad. But yeah, that is part 1, and I want to milk this for a bit more views, so maybe 10 extra views, so I can live that high roller lifestyle. So anyways, stick around, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button if you want to see part 2, where we will defeat the Radiants and get the true ending to Hall Knight. Anyways, that is it. Thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. All those numbers make me incredibly happy, more so than they should, let's be honest. And I am out.